Blood soaked through her designer blouse as she clutched her side, collapsing against the hood of her Bentley. "Please," she whispered to the rough-looking mechanic who'd rushed from his garage. "I can't go to a hospital." Their eyes met, hers filled with terror, his with determination. Neither knew this chance encounter would change both their lives forever. If you're moved by stories of unexpected connections and second chances, hit that like button and subscribe now. This journey of two souls from different worlds finding each other when they needed it most will remind you why our channel brings you the most heartfelt stories on YouTube. Eliza Harrington's day had begun like any other Tuesday: board meetings, investment calls, and the constant pressure of maintaining the empire she'd built from nothing. At 38, she was one of the youngest female billionaires in the country, having transformed a small tech startup into Harrington Innovations, now valued at over $4 billion. The quarterly projections look promising, Ms. Harrington, her CFO had said that morning, sliding the report across her immaculate glass desk. "Though I'm concerned about the aggressive timeline for the Singapore expansion." Eliza barely glanced at the numbers. She knew them by heart already. "The timeline stays. We move fast or we get left behind." Her tone left no room for discussion. Her assistant knocked softly before entering. "Your doctor called again. He's insisting on the follow-up appointment." "Tell him I'll reschedule," Eliza said, not looking up from her computer. The pain in her side had been getting worse for weeks, but there was no time for weakness. Not when competitors were circling like sharks. By late afternoon, she was driving herself home, having dismissed her driver earlier. She needed the rare solitude. The pain suddenly intensified, sharp and searing, causing her to swerve. Her Bentley Continental GT veered off the main road, a back tire blowing out as she struggled to maintain control. She managed to guide the car into what appeared to be a small auto repair shop on the outskirts of town, Miles & Son Mechanics, according to the weathered sign. As she stepped out, the world tilted. Looking down, she saw blood seeping through her silk blouse. Jack Miles was just closing up shop when he heard tires screeching. A luxury car he'd only seen in magazines rolled to a stop outside his garage. He wiped his greasy hands on a rag and stepped outside, expecting some entitled rich person annoyed about a flat tire. What he found instead was a pale woman in a blood-soaked blouse about to collapse. "Whoa, easy there," he said, catching her before she hit the ground. "You need an ambulance." "No hospitals," she gasped, clutching his oil-stained coveralls with surprising strength. "Please. I can't go." Jack was a man of few words and fewer questions. At 42, life had taught him that everyone had their secrets. As a single father running a struggling garage, he'd learned to mind his own business and focus on what he could control. "Dad? What's happening?" 10-year-old Liam appeared in the doorway, his homework forgotten at the sight of the bleeding woman. "Go back inside, buddy. Call Uncle Mike. Tell him we need help, but no sirens." Jack's brother-in-law was a paramedic, the only person Jack trusted since losing his wife to cancer 3 years ago. "I'm Jack," he said, helping the woman to the small break room in the back of his shop. "And apparently, I'm harboring a fugitive today." Despite her pain, the woman's lips twitched. "Eliza. And I'm not running from the law. Just complications." Mike arrived 20 minutes later, medical bag in hand. "This is beyond my pay grade, Jack," he whispered after examining Eliza, who had fallen into a restless sleep on the worn couch. "Looks like her appendix ruptured. She needs surgery, not first aid." "She was adamant about no hospitals," Jack said, running a hand through his dark hair. "Then she'll die," Mike said bluntly. "Is that what you want on your conscience?" Jack looked at the woman, Eliza. Even unconscious, there was something fierce about her. Something familiar in her determination. It reminded him of Sarah in her final days, refusing to give up even when the odds were impossible. "There's a private clinic in Westridge," Mike suggested. "Discreet, expensive as hell, but they don't ask questions. How expensive? Mike named a figure that made Jack wince. It was more than he made in 3 months. I'll figure something out, Jack said, already calculating which tools he could pawn. Eliza woke to the gentle motion of being carried. Strong arms held her against a chest that smelled of motor oil and something earthy. For the first time in years, she felt safe. Where? She managed to ask. Somewhere that can help you, Jack answered, his voice a low rumble against her cheek. Trust me. Trust. Such a foreign concept in her world of NDAs and corporate espionage. Yet something about this stranger's steady gaze made her nod. My purse, she whispered. In the car. There's money. Already grabbed it. Don't worry about that now. The private clinic was all sleek lines and hushed voices. Jack felt out of place in his stained coveralls, but he straightened his shoulders and approached the reception desk with the dignity of a man who knew his worth wasn't measured by his clothes. My friend needs help, he said simply. Possible ruptured appendix. The receptionist's eyes widened at Eliza's condition, then narrowed at Jack's appearance. Sir, this is a private facility. Perhaps the county hospital would be more appropriate. I can pay, Eliza interrupted weakly, fumbling with her purse. Harrington. Eliza Harrington. The atmosphere changed instantly. Jack watched in bewilderment as the staff transformed from dismissive to deferential in seconds. Ms. Harrington, we had no idea. Please, this way immediately. As they wheeled Eliza away, she caught Jack's hand. Stay, she whispered. Please. He nodded, though he had no idea why this wealthy stranger wanted him, a mechanic with grease permanently embedded in his fingerprints, to remain by her side. Hours later, a surgeon approached Jack in the waiting room where he sat with Liam, who was dozing against his shoulder. You're with Ms. Harrington, the doctor asked, surprise evident in his tone. Jack nodded, gently shifting Liam to wake him. How is she? Stable. It was indeed her appendix, but there were complications. Has she been ignoring symptoms for some time? Jack shrugged. Just met her when her car broke down at my shop. The doctor's eyebrows rose. I see. Well, she's asking for you. Eliza looked small in the hospital bed, her usual commanding presence diminished by the hospital gown and 4 lines. But her eyes were clear and sharp as ever when Jack entered. You stayed, she said, a statement rather than a question. Said I would, he replied, hands awkwardly shoved in his pockets. Liam hung back by the door, curious but shy. And you brought reinforcements, she said, offering a small smile to the boy. This is my son, Liam. Liam, this is Ms. Harrington. You have a cool car, Liam said, approaching the bed. Dad says the engine is a work of art. Is that so? Eliza glanced at Jack with new interest. Most people just see the price tag. Most people don't know what they're looking at, Jack replied. A nurse entered with paperwork, breaking the moment. Ms. Harrington, we need your insurance information and payment details. Of course, Eliza said, reaching for her purse, which Jack had placed beside her bed. Jack took Liam's hand. We should go. Glad you're okay, Ms. Harrington. Wait, Eliza called as they reached the door. I never thanked you properly. You saved my life. Jack shrugged. Anyone would have done the same. No, she said firmly. They wouldn't have. Please, let me repay you somehow. No need. Your car's at my shop. I'll fix that flat tire, no charge. You can pick it up when you're better. With that, he left, missing the look of stunned disbelief on Eliza's face, a woman used to people wanting something from her, confronted with someone who wanted nothing at all. 3 days later, Jack was underneath a '67 Mustang when Liam called out from the office. Dad! That lady's back. Jack rolled out from under the car to find Eliza standing in his garage, looking incongruously elegant in casual designer jeans and a simple blouse. Her hair was pulled back in a ponytail, making her look younger, less severe than the woman who had collapsed in his arms days ago. "Ms. Harrington," he said, wiping his hands. "Should you be up and about already?" "Probably not," she admitted. "But I've never been good at following orders. I came for my car." "Right. It's out back. Fixed the tire, checked the alignment. Good as new." An awkward silence fell between them. Jack wasn't sure what else to say to this woman who lived in a world so different from his own. "I looked you up," Eliza finally said. "Miles & Son Mechanics. Highest-rated independent garage in the county, but struggling financially." Jack stiffened. "We get by." "I'm sure you do. But the property taxes on this place must be crushing since they rezoned the area." "Did you come here to discuss my business model, Miss Harrington?" "Eliza," she corrected. "And no. I came to offer you a job." Jack raised an eyebrow. "I already have a job." "A partnership, then." "Harrington Innovations is developing a new line of electric vehicles. We need someone who understands both traditional mechanics and can think innovatively. Someone who sees the engine, not just the price tag." Jack studied her face, looking for the catch. "Why me?" "There are thousands of mechanics with better credentials. None who would help a bleeding stranger who refused to go to a hospital, no questions asked." She paused. "I don't trust easily, Mr. Miles. In my world, kindness usually comes with strings attached." "Jack," he corrected. "And I'm not looking for charity." "Good, because I'm not offering any. I'm offering a business opportunity that would benefit us both." She glanced around the garage, her eyes landing on Liam, who was pretending not to eavesdrop while sweeping the same spot repeatedly. "And perhaps provide more stability for your son." Jack followed her gaze. Since Sarah died, he'd been barely keeping them afloat. The garage had been his father's dream, not his, but he'd taken it over out of duty. Now it was failing, despite his best efforts. "I need to think about it," he said finally. Eliza nodded, handing him a business card. "Take all the time you need. My offer stands." As she turned to leave, Liam stepped forward. "Miss Harrington? Are you really a billionaire?" "Liam," Jack admonished, but Eliza laughed, a genuine sound that transformed her face. "On paper, yes. But that's just numbers in an account. The real question is what you do with it." She knelt to Liam's level, despite her healing incision. "What would you do if you had $1 billion? Liam considered this seriously. "I'd make sure Dad didn't have to work so hard. And maybe get a dog." Eliza's eyes softened. "Those sound like excellent priorities." She stood, meeting Jack's gaze. "Smart kid you've got there." "Yeah," Jack agreed, resting a hand on his son's shoulder. "He takes after his mom." 2 weeks passed. Jack found himself staring at Eliza's business card more often than he cared to admit. The garage was quieter than usual, another sign that the end might be near for his father's legacy. "You should call her," Mike said during their weekly dinner. Since Sarah's death, his brother-in-law had made sure to check in regularly, bringing groceries and company. "It's complicated," Jack replied, watching Liam play video games in the living room of their small apartment above the garage. "Only because you're making it that way. What's the worst that could happen?" Jack didn't answer, but they both knew. The worst would be hoping again, only to lose. After Sarah, Jack had built walls around himself and Liam, walls that kept out pain but also possibility. That night, after Liam was asleep, Jack finally called the number on the card. "Harrington," came the crisp answer on the first ring. "It's Jack." "Jack Miles." A pause. "I was beginning to think you'd thrown my card away." Nearly did. Several times. He could hear the smile in her voice. But you didn't. That's interesting. I'm not interesting, Ms. Harrington. I'm practical. My garage is failing, and I have a son to support. So you're accepting my offer? Jack took a deep breath. I'm considering it. But I have conditions. I'm listening. I keep my garage. Whatever this partnership is, it doesn't mean I give up what my father built. And Liam's life stays stable, no moving, no changing schools. Anything else? Yeah. You tell me the real reason you didn't want to go to a hospital that day. The silence stretched so long that Jack thought she might have hung up. That's not relevant to our business arrangement, she finally said, her voice cooler. It is to me. I don't partner with people who keep secrets that might affect the business. Another long pause. Come to my office tomorrow. We'll discuss everything. Harrington Innovations occupied the top 10 floors of a gleaming skyscraper downtown. Jack felt out of place in his best shirt, which was still worn at the collar, and jeans without grease stains. Liam, beside him in the elevator, vibrated with excitement. Do you think she has robots? He whispered. The website said they make AI stuff too. I don't know, buddy. Remember, we're just here to talk. No decisions yet. Eliza met them herself at the elevator, surprising Jack. He'd expected to be kept waiting or handed off to an assistant. Welcome to Harrington Innovations, she said, looking more like the powerful CEO he'd researched online than the vulnerable woman from his garage. Yet something in her eyes when she smiled at Liam reminded him of that moment of connection. The tour was impressive even to Jack's skeptical eye. The facilities were cutting edge, the staff passionate. Liam was entranced by the robotics lab, where engineers let him test a prototype helper bot designed for elder care. What do you think so far? Eliza asked as they reached her office, a corner space with views that made Jack's stomach drop. It's not my world, he admitted. It could be, she said simply, gesturing for them to sit. I've drawn up a proposal based on your conditions. She slid a folder across the desk. Jack opened it, eyes widening at the figures. This is fair market value for your expertise, she said firmly. Plus investment in upgrading your garage to service our prototype vehicles. You'd split your time, 3 days here, 2 at your shop, which we'd rebrand as an authorized Harrington Service Center. Jack closed the folder. And the hospital? Eliza's professional mask slipped slightly. She glanced at Liam, who was distracted by a holographic display of a car engine. Liam, would you like to see our game testing room? My assistant can show you. We're developing educational software. Once Liam had left, bouncing with excitement, Eliza's shoulders dropped. 3 years ago, I was diagnosed with a rare blood disorder. Nothing immediately life-threatening, but it requires monitoring. The board doesn't know. Why keep it secret? Because perception is reality in business. The moment shareholders think I'm vulnerable, stock prices fall. Competitors circle. Everything I've built becomes unstable. So the appendix? Bad timing. I'd been ignoring symptoms, taking painkillers to get through meetings. I was on my way to a private doctor when it ruptured. She met his eyes directly. I panicked. If I'd gone to a regular hospital, it would have made records. Records lead to leaks. Leaks lead to headlines. That's a hell of a way to live, Jack said quietly. It's the price of success, she replied, but her voice lacked conviction. Is it worth it? The question hung between them, unexpectedly intimate. For a moment, Eliza seemed to consider it seriously. I used to think so, she finally said. Now I'm not so sure.